Today we're going to explore rewinding in the sewing world, because sometimes you just don't know what you got till it gone. And we need to put more of this back on this. These pants are too short and we're gonna fix it. We're gonna start by measuring the pants as they are. So this way we will actually know how much we've been able to lengthen them. So I'm coming up to the crotch seam. I'm gonna measure straight down without stretching the pant or the tape measure. And I've got us at about 28.25. So that's what the pants are measuring right now. Great. Now, to gauge how much I think I'm gonna be able to let it down, I'm gonna look at the actual hem allowance, meaning the stitching to the bottom of the pant. That looks like it's a standard 1/2 inch. That's what we would normally do, and that's what a jean or denim would normally be. So let's hope and assume that there is at least a 1/2 inch rolled on the inside and then another 1/2 inch to see that. So when we let this down, I hope that the pant will be 1 inch longer down to the raw edge. And then I'm gonna show you how to put the amount that was cut off back on. So let's seam rip to start and get ourselves back down to the longest length that these pants have the ability to reach. Awesome, so we've got all of the stitching removed from the hem that was in the pant, and now we're gonna measure again. The reason we're taking so many measurements is really we just wanna see how successful this process is gonna be. So yes, we had quite a bit rolled up in there. In fact, it looks like we were almost at 29.75. So that's a whole almost 1.5 inches that we've been able to let this pant hem down. And now we can jump to our scraps to extend even further. So this is gonna be awesome. First, this is what the pant hem looked like when it was cut off, right? So that is what was cut off before it was rolled up and rehemmed again. So I've got the stitching removed from that bottom pant bit, and we're actually gonna take that original hem and put that back on to give us almost that full 1.5 inches, and maybe if we're lucky, even another 1/2 inch from this hem that we're putting back on. So let's jump to this bit and cut off what we need here. Okay, this would be the perfect time to stop and tell you that this procedure is going to completely mimic the original hem jean video, which you can take a look at here. So this is a great process for putting back on an original hem, but it's also great for any other type of material when you're in a situation like this where you're trying to lengthen. So let's get back to our little bit here. Again, this is the portion that I cut off of the pant already, and this is where you can just kind of barely see the artificial aging there of where the stitching line was. I'm gonna measure the hem allowance, which, like I said, it should be a 1/2 inch, and I'm gonna mark another 1/2 inch above that. This is going to give us, when we cut off this remaining section, which we don't need anymore, it's going to give us 1, 2, 3, 4 equal folded sections. And again, we are taking this portion and binding it around the edge, our raw edge, to lengthen and finish the pant. So let's go ahead and cut that. Great, and I'm just taking a little like bite right there. Awesome. And then following this around, you'll notice that I'm cutting this on a single layer. I don't like to chance it and cut on the fold or on the double with pant hems. I like to work on this single layer to make sure that it's exact, especially in this case where I really want this to be totally on the mark. This beautiful piece of denim, we don't need anymore. So I'm gonna set that off to the side, and we are just left with this little cutie. So I am going to unfold it all the way, and now I'm gonna put it back onto my pant bottom. One thing I wanna point out too you'll notice that I haven't ironed. I usually iron basically everything, but in this case, all of these fold lines are giving me indicators of different things that I want to be reminded of during this process. So I'm actually not going to iron this until the very end. I'm going to leave all of these creases in to give me like guideposts, essentially. So let me reach for my pants. And I'm unraveling the bottom pant all the way so that my innermost folded edge is the one that I'm going to put up against the pant leg itself. So take a very close look at your stitching because I love matching up the stitching on this one. This has a little bit of a decorative top stitch here and then kind of a folded edge. I'm going to put the correct side of that pant hem up against the wrong or inner side of the pant bottom, okay? And I'm going to show you why in just a second. I'm going to pin on my 1/2 inch mark. Everything is going to be in 1/2 inch marks from here on out. So I don't even need to put my chalk mark in it because I know I'm working with 1/2 inches all the way. I'm going to test this really quick to make sure that I got this right. And fold, fold, and fold. And make sure that when it's finished, you see how this seam continuation matches. I just really like that. I think it looks really nice. And the other side is going to be a little bit different because it's just a plain inseam. So I want to match those up. That's really more aesthetic, but anyway, just great. Okay, let's finish pinning this pant hem all the way around that inside of the pant. And again, look and see how I'm situating it. Right side of the pant hem to the wrong side of the pant leg. And when I say pant hem, I'm referencing that little bit that we cut off of the bottom, okay? There we go. This is a little bit more wily to pin because I haven't pressed it. And again, fighting that temptation is hard, but those creases, they're gonna help. They're gonna really make a big difference when we're trying to get this thing all lined up later. I think I only need 4 pins to hold this together. So as we're looking at the pant leg from the outside, you can only see the pins and you can tell that this is pinned on the inside, but you can't actually see it. That means after we sew this, we're gonna flip this guy out and sew it again, and that'll be the whole process. So let's go and connect these 2 pieces together with one circular seam. Alrighty, that was easy, yay. Oh, thread on that one. You'll notice before we took out the stitching on the pant hem, it had that nice heavy kind of dark brown, pretty like denim top stitching thread. For that internal stitch, we just need a regular weight matching denim thread. So I just used like a dark gray actually. Okay, this is my pant leg, as you remember. And this is my pant hem that I just reattached to it. Now we're finally ready to come over to our iron and we're gonna get on our arm pressing board and roll this guy up. Remember when you are setting in this pant hem portion, everything is still 1/2 inch segments. However, if you find that this is too difficult to wrap your bound edge around, do you see how I'm having a little bit of trouble forcing this up? As long as you have sewn that seam at 1/2 inch in, I don't think it's a problem if you trim a little bit because that's just going to make it a little bit easier for you to bind that portion up. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're cutting it shorter and you are lengthening it. Here's the deal. When we get down to this portion, we have to stick with the original hem allowance measurement, and that is 1/2 inch whether we like it or not. So trimming the inside of this does not impact our ability to lengthen anymore. We have committed to what was already designed. Okay, so I'm folding this, and then I'm folding again. This little bump here is going to give us some little bit of trouble. I'm going to give it some heat, but if I find that I can't get my sewing machine to run over that, I'm probably going to hit it once with the hammer, honestly, to try to flatten that little baby out. Perfect. And you'll notice that I'm obsessively trying to line up those stitching lines because I just like it. And the reason I'm using the arm board here is because I find it a little bit easier to work with it when the surface of the pant is raised off of the surface of the ironing board. And I've got this nice cylindrical arm here to wrap that pant hem around. It just brings it up closer to me and gives me a little more freedom of movement. Now, don't go crazy pinning here. I'm just putting enough in. Oh, when I'm at that other seam there, I'm gonna, again, give myself a little bit of a trim here. I'm really doing like 1/8 of an inch, okay? So don't get crazy, not even like a quarter. Keep it just enough. There we go. Probably most of the time I'm sticking with 4 pins. In this process, anytime I'm pinning around the pant leg, 1 per seam and then 1 per each middle. And that's it. I don't want to get too fussy here. I want this to be a nice, clean, easy process. And you know, for me, the less pins, the better. And as I'm ironing it, one last really important pro tip is that we're trying not to stretch the pant. A lot of times, you know, this denim has got some amount of spandex in it. And as we're putting this binding back on, it is a little bit bulkier, okay? So we want to try really hard not to also stretch the pant because it'll result in kind of a weird flare. So we're trying to be careful to maintain that original width. See where I'm going? Perfect. All right, we are already ready to find this nice matching brown top stitch, and we're going to go back to the machine and get rethreaded and throw that back on and then measure it up. So we're getting very close to the end here, which is awesome. We are literally aiming for, if you can just barely see where the previous stitching line was, it will usually be a section that is either darker or lighter because the dye has pooled in that area. So we're trying to put our new top stitching with as close a match thread color and weight as the other stitching on the pant and get that stitching right back in those previous stitching holes. So I'm just trying to keep everything balanced. Keep that nice 1/2 inch and work our way all the way around. The ironing is going to make a big difference in this scenario because we really want everything to lay nice and flat. I'm hoping that my stitching line underneath is also nice and straight and looking good. Part of the keeping to the 1/2 inch folds is trying to regulate where all of the stitching is and making sure that it looks good. All right, we already reached the other side, halfway there. As I'm going over the bumps, especially when it's a heavier weight fabric like this denim, I'm just trying to make sure that the foot moves along smoothly and that it isn't pushing the fabric in the wrong direction. So I'm holding it with my fingers and my nails. Awesome. Awesome. And then I can see our starting point coming up here. This is another place where we want to make sure that we're trying really hard not to stretch the pant as we're stitching, because if we stretch it while we're going here, it's going to maintain that weird flared, unintentionally flared look. I think you know what I'm talking about. So careful to keep the integrity exactly the same. Whoopsies. I just want to lift and try to make sure that everything stays in place. All right. Wow. Yay. Look at that. All right, let's give this another press and then measure it and see how much we were able to extend. Okay, we're ready to give this a nice little press. We're back on our arm board here. And again, I'm using the arm board to keep from stretching and to also give myself a nice flat single surface instead of trying to press directly on both sides of the pant at once, because I feel like that gives it a weird kind of crease. Now, I love this, but I do want to point out the differences between putting an original hem back on and what we would call a cut and turn, literally. Cut it, turn it, stitch it back up. And this other side of the pant I haven't done yet, so you see how it's a little what I would call fresh, where you can see that it's been cut, turned, stitched, pressed, and it will get that nice aging over time. It just takes a few washes, few wears before it starts to get that really classic denim aged look. Whereas when we put the bottom back on like this, you see how it had that little bit of aging and it's got this little bit of even kind of an edge now. There's definitely something to this. Both looks are great, but they definitely have a slightly different look, and you just kind of want to take that into account when you're thinking about how you want that finished edge to look. So this is our new side, and we are ready for the final measurement. Okay, reminder, we were at about 28.25 for the original, the pant hem before we decided to lengthen. Now, we're going to measure up from the crotch again, just like we did last time, trying not to stretch the material or the tape measure. And I'm coming straight down the inseam. Moment of truth. Let's see how far we've got. Wow, all the way to 30. So almost a full 1.75 inches. So again, let's recap. We let down the hem that was in the pant itself, and that gave us about 1.5 inches. And then we put back on the original hem. You could also try to find a matching pant bottom from another pant if you wanted, either for contrast or for, just fun, I don't know. But regardless, we put on its original hem, and that extended it now almost out to, let's call it 1.5 inches. That's the safest way to put it. You're really only going to get the same measurement as that raw edge if you do it right. So once you've let that hem down from the beginning, then you're going to slap that binding or original hem back on just to cover that raw edge, give it a clean look, but you're going to end up with that measurement from the letdown, which in our case was about 29.75. So that means we've gotten a whole 1.5 inches out of these bad boys. Awesome, love it. Okay, ask me questions, look at the original hem video, and give me suggestions. How would you lengthen your pants? What would you do? I don't know. I'm always looking for new quirky processes on this one. Like, subscribe, do all the things. Thank you so much. See you soon.